So it's a big day. It's finally groundbreaking for Brightline West, and you expect this to be the first high-speed rail system in the United States when it opens. Do you really think you can get this 218-mile system between Las Vegas and Southern California built within a 4-year timetable?
100%. It's not just a wild speculation on our part. That's the product of a tremendous amount of work and time and money that's been put into it already. And we kind of broke the system up into segments, so we're not really starting at one place to get to the other. So you'll see simultaneous activity along the corridor for this. The rolling stock, is something we are actually out, putting out for the bids right now. So it's something that we want to get, off the drawing boards and into production soon. So all those things together, we really do believe that the timeline is both an aggressive one, but a very achievable one. And we think 4 years from now, we'll have a train where we're standing right now.
And you're confident it'll be operational in time for the LA Summer Olympics in 2028?
We are. There's the things we control and things we don't control. So we think that we can control the construction part of it. At the end of it, there's then a very lengthy process of then making sure that it qualifies for all the FRA and government guidelines for this. And there hasn't been a high-speed train to test against. So that's a little bit of ambiguity. But we do feel like that was the target all along. We feel like having President Biden ride before the end of his second term is a big part of it's always good to have a goal, and that's a goal that we have, and we're excited about it.
Mr. Secretary, this project is happening with a lot of federal support, a $3 billion grant, $3.5 billion in private activity bonds. Is this the model, or in this case, are you trying to just get things going and help fund this particular project and hoping that stokes up interest?
Well, we do believe that when this project is complete, it's going to open the floodgates for American expectations around high-speed rail. It won't anymore be, I just got back from Japan, why can't we have that? It'll be, I just got back from Vegas, why can't we have that in the Midwest or in the Northwest or wherever I live as a domestic tourist in the United States? Mm-hmm. This is important because it really establishes that it can be done here, which, by the way, of course it can be done here. This is the United States of America, but in the past, we haven't invested enough to make this happen. I'll tell you, the federal funding coming into this project came from a very competitive process. Mm-hmm. So it was not done lightly. They had to hit all sorts of marks in order to qualify, both for the $3 billion in grants and the $3.5 billion in financing that's coming to support this project. But we wouldn't be here if we didn't believe in it. And human experience and American experience has demonstrated that projects of this level of ambition are difficult, they're doable, and they're hugely impactful when they actually get achieved.
This is not the first groundbreaking for a high-speed rail project. Next door in California, one's been underway for a while, but the timeline is a lot longer, the costs are a lot greater. There's a big chunk of the budget that no one knows exactly where that's going to come from. Should California consider working with a Brightline West or another private entity to maybe help that project get built all the way from LA to San Francisco?
Well, the structure, the scale, and the distance of the California project make it quite different from this one. But what I will say is, the more you do it, the more you do it. In other words, the more we have functioning high-speed rail up and running in the United States, the more we have a nationwide readiness for it, both in terms of customers, passengers, and in terms of the professionals who work on it, who, when they encounter a problem, they're not encountering it for the first time. I think that's already served Brightline well because of their experience, not what we would consider high-speed in these terms, but real experience delivering an important train service in Florida. And I think in turn, the California project and this and every other high-speed rail vision in America can all benefit from each other because we build that muscle memory as a country on how to do this, and that industry as a country, that domestic high-speed rail industry that I think could take its place alongside the auto industry and the aviation industry as a huge employer and driver of value in the United States.
Mm-hmm. Wes, you've been thinking about this a long time, and as mentioned, you're already operating the Florida system. You're now starting with this one, but you've mentioned there are other intercity routes that look very compelling. Is there another one that looks as doable? Because obviously in this case, a lot of the regulatory approval was done, a lot of the environmental approval was done, the land was acquired. So this one seems to have many things working in its favor. Are there others that both look attractive but also have some of the same elements going for it?
Yeah, I think there are actually many others. And I think that probably the major development between version 1.0 in Florida and version 2.0 here in Vegas, LA, is moving off of an existing rail system into an already disturbed transportation corridor, which is I-15. And so there's lots of highways that connect these city pairs that are attractive. So the too far to drive, too short to fly, with two big population centers, that's the secret sauce of this. Putting it in the middle of the highway, I think, actually solves a lot of issues. You can basically, you can create your own system. You can put a fence around it. There's no rail crossings. You can go at true high speeds, 200 miles, plus an hour. So there's a lot of those. So when we look around the country, there's very obvious ones. The whole kind of Texas triangle of, Dallas to Houston, Houston to San Antonio, Austin there. That's one that obviously makes sense in terms of the economic profile of it. Portland to Seattle and that whole area of the world. The Midwest, even, like you look at places from, Cleveland to Columbus and whatnot. So I think that there are many, many expressions of it. You need to de-risk it by getting one done. What the secretary said, I really believe in, is like, it can't be a second until there was a first. But once you have a P&L, you can look at it, you can see that the revenue projections are correct, you can see that the ridership is correct. That's what will really catalyze this. And I think that there's a number of places it'll go. And I think this first one it's not just the development of the system that's important, it's the development of the entire industry. That's the really exciting, that's the milestone for me that I think will be really notable when we look back on this in years to come.
And what's your ridership target for SoCal to Vegas once things are sort of like annualized after a year or two of operation?
There's about 50 million trips that happen between Las Vegas and Los Angeles. About 85% of those happen by car, right? When you look at the amount of time that you save people, that's a big indicator for how many people are going to ride your train. So simply put, the more time you save them, the more you're going to do it. There's few places you're going to save people more time than between here and LA. Right, that ride is at best a long ride, and at worst it's a lot worse than that. So we think that a pretty good percentage of the 40 plus million that are on that will get onto our train. I think our initial estimates are around 12 million is kind of a stabilized number. Okay. But I really believe long term we'll have a capacity problem more than a ridership problem, because I think that this is just such a compelling opportunity for people versus driving across the desert that I think it'll be really, really amazing.
And over time, do you see an opportunity to connect from Rancho into actual Los Angeles proper?
Well, we are connected on the metro system, right? So basically you can walk across the tracks and get onto the Metrolink system. That's a very active, very, very productive system in Southern California. Would love to see that get electrified. Would love to aspire one day to get down there, but that's not part of the plans right now. And I say I'd like to get electrified because I'd like to see fewer emissions kind of everywhere. And so I think that would be an obvious choice for it. But when you look at the system itself, I-15 kind of comes down the pass and it goes into the LA basin. Everything goes from there. So putting a train station right there is really a sensible thing, right? That's what 100% of the people that drive to Las Vegas have to drive past our train station, right? So that's a very, very good place to start. So the train station itself is not a second choice at all. We think that obviously Union Station is an iconic place, and that'd be a lot of great things, but there's that's not really the destination that we view as important as the Rancho Station.
Mr. Secretary, what looks like the most promising next project after this one?
We know our corridor identification program is funding several early planning efforts around the country. The Texas Central Railroad that would go Dallas to Houston, the Cascadia Vision that would connect Vancouver, Seattle, and Portland, Charlotte to Atlanta, which, given the amount of economic growth happening there, and just the population layout of that part of the South, also incredibly compelling. And there's more where that came from. Look, we know it's going to take federal support to get some of these projects onto the drawing board, let alone turn them into a reality. But that's exactly why we need to be working now toward that longer range future. And to those who say, well, this isn't Europe, that's true, it isn't Europe. We're doing this on American terms. But what we definitely have in America are these kinds of geographic layouts where you got lots of city pairs that are an uncomfortably long drive or an inefficiently short flight apart from each other. Those are excellent candidates for high-speed rail.
And which of those pairs is your next choice? Which do you think looks most compelling?
I don't know. We're so focused on this right now. We haven't picked, kind of the next one. I'll say this: we've been contacted by a lot of different governors and whatnot that are curious about this. I think today is a real milestone to see that this is a reality that's now happening. And I think that there could easily be, like I say, a handful of these things that turn into real projects from our standpoint in the next 12 to 24 months. So it's an exciting time for it.
So of the funding for this project, $5.5 billion from private sources. Are you one of those private sources? Are you putting in your own money?
I am one of those private sources. I've actually put my money where my mouth is. So, I've been invested in this project for a very long time. And, obviously we think it's going to be a compelling investment. I think that in my own life, I've tried to find things that I could focus on where you're doing well by doing good and something that really makes an impact. And I think that the impact from this is going to be long lasting, and it's going to be, prodigious. And so I'm just really excited to be a part of it. And I want it to be successful because I want the next one and the next one and the next one to happen.